Welcome back to Chop's Garage. Today we are fitting the right headlight this time to the customer's i10. If you remember, this one came in because the adjustment motor on the headlights wasn't working. It's whirring away and it's broken. I ordered a headlight, didn't realise at the time it was the wrong one, so I had to get the car back in to replace it again. She put a new bulb in, had a new bulb put in this side, and now it's very bright compared to this one, so I said goodwill wise I'll replace the bulb in this one as well for us, so she's got sort of level brightness out of her headlights, but it does mean taking the bumper off to get both the headlights out, as it does on most modern cars now, to change the bulbs. So I couldn't get my hand in there. There's no way I'd be able to get in and change a bulb in there, but she's obviously enjoying the car because it's absolutely caked, so we'll give it a clean to her before we give it back as well. But good little cars, these little i10s. I should touch wood while I'm saying this. I sell a few of these i10s and people love them, and they're great little cars. I don't tend to, as a general rule, have any problems with them. They are cracking little cars. So yeah, if you see these come up at auction, you're looking to do flips, they always sell quickly. Like I say, they're normally very little hassle. They're chain drive, and they tend to be reliable. They're low on road tax, low on insurance, good on fuel. And they just tend to have been looked after. As a general rule, they tend to have been looked after by the early owners. So yeah, little i10s, that's one of my top tips if you're starting to flip cars and you want relatively low risk. Obviously there's a risk with all cars, but if you want low risk, quick turnaround, find yourself a good deal on an i10. They're pretty popular at the auction, so try and maybe go and get a private buy off of Marketplace or something. Snag yourself a deal there, negotiate hard. Find one that's a bit dirty and a bit tatty, but it's got a good service history. You know, things where wheels are bad or there's a blemish or dents on the paintwork, which you get quite a few with dents on, because type of drivers tend to ding them a little bit. Yeah, look out for those, haggle hard on them, do a little bit of paintwork like you've seen in my videos, give it a good polish and a good clean up, make sure it's got a service on it, and yeah, you shouldn't be sitting on it too long and should make good margin on it. So Malcolm at Car Care is officially a legend. Sorry, got the keys. Yeah, so Malcolm over at Car Care Centre, officially a legend. Look at this, MGB. Better check his out of gear. No choke. Running like a dream. And no black smoke anymore. So I'm going to give her the mother of all cleans and then go back and surprise my father-in-law with it, so he can get out in the sunshine and enjoy it, and put some air in his cars as well, I think. But yeah, if you want somebody to sort this out, go old school. That's the thing to do. Malcolm's got it running better than it's ever been. Fingers crossed. I've got to drive it home tonight to be 100% sure, but there's a lot of crud in it. Looks like we might have a BMW X5 Starley going on again here as well. We've got some stuff that looks like Misi might be in here. But yeah, let's give her a good clean and get her back to the old father-in-law. Well, I'm afraid I jumped the gun a bit with the Dacia, guys, thinking you probably wouldn't want to see any more painting, but apparently you all do. So I'll go through what I've done so far. So I put the filler on. I hammer and dollied the edge of the door where it's bent in, put my filler in, did 2 or 3 coats on that to get it level. I did do that ding up there at the top that you all told me to do as well, the little ding in the paintwork. So same process with the filler, scuff up the metalwork where you want the filler to go. That was about 120. I think it was 80 grit at first to get the main marks, the paint off, because I want the filler to be onto metal rather than paintwork. So filler on, go over the top of that with a 120 because it was quite smooth, so I only needed a 120 grit on the orbital sander, without a sponge on the orbital sander, so with the hard edge on it to make sure it stayed flat all the way through. Did that, then I did a 240 pass on it as well and a 400 pass on it, then filler primer over the top, 3 coats of filler primer, and then I've waited for it to go off, and I've wet sanded this with 800 and but you can see here my sanding marks are pretty uneven because I've done it by hand. So I'll now go over the scuff pad and make sure that we don't need we have a more even surface there. And obviously my blend area is going to have to be out to about here, so I need to scuff all this up, colour to about here, and then lacquer to about here, and then fade out about here, so leave yourself plenty of space. Same thing on the front one, same process, hammer and dollied it out, then filler, and then filler primer, and then again this is 800. Now this is not going to be completely level because when it had the ding upwards it did bend this wing out a little bit, so there's going to be a slight bump there I think if you look at it from certain angles. But we've got that big, you remember this was up here, dented up to here before, so we've got that sorted. So yeah, we've got to just basically take 1200 now and scuff these areas out. So we're all scuffed up as far out as we want to be. You can see this is a lot better than the 800 where it was sort of cross-hatched. We've got a smoother finish here with this scuff. We're taking it out probably a little bit wider than I think I need because you always end up needing a bit more space than you thought you did. So it's always best to do a larger area because all this will polish out if you don't end up going out to here anyway. But the colour's probably going to end up going to there, so I definitely need this much space for fade out. So we need to give it a wipe down a few times and then we need to get everything masked up. So we're all masked up and we've panel wiped everything down. As always, the tape is folded back on itself so we don't get a harsh line. So we're all set to lay our first coat of colour on. The can's been warming outside. We're going to do a first dust coat on it. So we've got something to grab to with the later coats. I'm not too sure about the wind today. Might be a little bit too much wind to be doing it in the doorway here, but we'll give it a go. I just realised I told you I was going to drive the Dacia home before I started any work on it and tell you what I thought of it. I did drive it home. A couple of things. For starters, I didn't realise how high spec it was. This one actually has sat-nav. So we've got sat-nav, cruise control, Bluetooth, USB auxiliary input, DAB radio, and rear parking sensors. I didn't know it had those as well. So it's actually really loaded up with kit. It's the lorry app, but I don't know if there was if you could still put other functions on top. But yeah, fully loaded up. I was very surprised with the sat nav and the parking sensors. So value for money wise, this is going to be going out the door around about the 5.5 mark. You're getting a hell of a lot of car for your money. Drive-wise, it wasn't as slow as I thought it was. I hadn't driven the 1 litre before. I'd driven the 1.5 diesel, which obviously I do like diesels. I like the additional torque you get from the diesels. But having driven this, it wasn't actually as slow as I thought it might be with just the 1 litre in it. Actually, it bombed along okay, and according to the onboard computer, we're in the 50 mpg range. So not too bad at all. What always surprises me about these as well is I was expecting to be a lot noisier, being sort of the lower end cars. But actually they're not noisy. They're actually pretty smooth and pretty quiet. So yeah, I found nothing on it at all that concerned me at all mechanically. The only thing having looked around the car is I think it might need some rear tyres. They've probably been the ones, maybe someone swapped the front to the back. I don't know, they've got a few more 1,000 miles in them. They're not on the wear indicators yet. Should I be replacing those before it goes out the door? It's going to cost me another probably 150 quid to put some tyres on the back, or should I leave that to negotiations? Trouble is, the thing is, again, to give you the inside out of the industry, things like Auto Trader and Car Guru now give a price for the vehicle, and the price they give the vehicle is based on, I think, an average across the country as a whole. Now, down here in Devon, cars cost you more to get here because you have to pay more transport and so forth, but we're supposed to price the same as cars up country. And the thing is as well, when you put those pricing indicators in there, everybody has to work to them, otherwise your prices look high. Well, they say they're high, they'll say high price. So everybody is coming to you wanting you to be great price or good price on Auto Trader, which means your margins are very low, and the only way you really be there is to do nothing to the car. So when you get in a situation like this where the tyres, they're not due yet, I would say you could probably get another 5,000 miles or so out of them. is it something you do or not? I'd like to be able to do it, but if I stick another 150 quid in the car and then put the car up for 6.5, rather than 5.5, am I going to get the phone calls? Are people going to turn up? Difficult one, really difficult one. It's, you know, I think everybody thinks you're making a fortune on these cars, and as we know with this one, by the time I put a warranty on it, the hours of labour I'm putting into it, blah 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 blah, it might only have 500 quid in it. So 150 quid on tyres is actually material. But anyway, back to subject. It drove fine, no qualms about it. Suspension brilliant, gearbox brilliant, engine great, no horrible noises, temperature stayed where it should do, steering as it should, no knocks and bangs, all of what you'd expect from a car 2018. But the big plus is how fully loaded up it is. So it will be making somebody fantastic value. And with that paintwork sorted, I'm going to take the time to clean the car off and machine polish the whole rest of the car being black, make it look as good as it can. We'll machine polish everything, we'll clean up the inside. The inside is mint on it. It doesn't actually need an awful lot inside. Whoever had it looked after it. All the seats are in a really good condition. There's nothing to be concerned about in that side of things. So we'll get it looking really, really clean. Obviously we've got to flat and polish that new paint first. But yeah, so she drove absolutely fine, which is why I started on the paint, which is the long and short of where I started with this. Because it's a bit windy outside, we put our first dust coat on of the black. So that's the first sort of grab coat. We're going to leave that for 10 minutes and then put our next coats on. We're going to just dust it on. We're not going to try and cover up this primer too quickly. We're just going to gradually take our time building it up. So second coat on. And again, we haven't actually covered up the primer yet. We're not going to try and cover up the primer. We're just going to go gently coat by coat. When we get to the later coats, we're going to flick out the paint to the sides a little bit. So we don't have a hard line of our fresh colour. So we're going to flick it out a little bit, but obviously not so far that when we put lacquer on and then we machine polish back later, we could go into colour. So this is just about taking your time now. And if you see a reaction in your paint that you're not happy with, you just basically need to stop, get a heat gun on it, or wait till the next day, flood it back and paint again. Don't try and make up for it and fix it there and then, because you're likely to run into trouble if you do that. So just take your time. So third coat, still not covered yet. This is where it's very tempting to lay on thicker coats because you want to see your primer disappear, but you can't. You've got to take your time with it and see what's going on. I've got a little area here, just got to keep an eye on. I might have to stop and have a little sand there. We'll see how we get on. But yeah, just take your time. Let it build up gradually. Don't try and get it all covered at once. Fourth coat, and I think we're nearly there. We just need one final coat, and then we'll be able to go to lacquer. And I'm going in this direction because I reckon at the factory the robots were probably spraying in this direction, so I want to keep going sort of in this direction. Now coat 5, I think this is. We've got an even colour to it, so I think we're ready for the lacquer. We've got a nice even matte surface, and yeah, so next step is going to be the lacquer. Got the micro out in the light, so you can have a look at that. It doesn't actually look as dark now out in the light. The colour match is actually pretty damn good. Here's where I've painted. His factory, there's a bit of dust over the car, but you can still see that we're looking good. This is where I blended in. You can't see any blend in there. I thought I had some tiger striping, but I haven't. And like I said, the colour match isn't too bad at all. So a few of you said you can't really see in the light in the garage, but there you go. Outside, she looks good. So happy with that. So first grab coat of lacquer on. Say spray it from a bit of distance. Make sure it stands up on the paint a bit, so we've got something for the rest of it to grab to. So again, leave 10 minutes and then we'll put the next coat on. Second coat of lacquer on. Again, we haven't gone too heavy. Third, we're going to do a third and a fourth coat, I think. Maybe even 5 coats to give myself plenty to be able to buff off later on. Right, last wet coat on, and fade out thinner's gone on the edges here. So that's that. And then this side, wet coat and fade out thinner on the edges. So now leave it well alone. Stay away from it, don't touch it, don't overanalyze it. That's when you'll end up doing something stupid. Try and lay more paint on somewhere. Do something. If you've made a mistake at this point, you've got to let it go off and then hit it the next day. Unfortunately, it's the only way to do it. So now this will be left alone. It will be left alone. See, I've got to do it myself now, haven't I? Just leave it alone, and we'll come back to it later on tomorrow for the flat and polish and see where we are. Right, so I said in an earlier video I'd cover the subject of my £1 Fiat 500. This is my daily driver, and this Fiat 500 cost me £1. So I'll cover the story behind that. It's a 57 plate 1.3 diesel, and I would say this is probably the best car I have. That doesn't mean everything else is absolute rubbish. It's just the best car overall. So those of you that watch the channel know that I've got Cappuccino, little Cappuccino, Suzuki Cappuccino that I bomb around in. I've got my 106 Rally. I've got a Fiat 500 X on a 2016 plate. I've got an MGB Roadster. I've always got loads of cars kicking around, but this is the car I use the most. This is my daily driver. So yes, it's a 57 plate 1.3 diesel Fiat 500. It's a lounge, and her name is Fifi. I inherited that name with the car, so I'll just tell you that now. And she, ever since I started flipping cars, this has been my daily runner. The story behind it is that when I left my corporate job, I of course gave up my company car, and my company car at the time was a brand new Skoda Octavia VRS estate with the DSG gearbox. Lovely car, brilliant drive, but obviously when I gave up my corporate job I had to give that car back, and all the money I had obviously I wanted to put into starting a new business. I didn't want to tie it up in a car for myself. I had enough toys already, so I just wanted a cheap daily driver, and something that wasn't going to cost me anything to run, something that I could get in and out of dirty in my work clothes and not have to worry about. And one of the very first deals we did was a Fiat 500 Sport, actually for Stuart's sister-in-law. So Stuart owns Alfa Ragazzi's sister-in-law. One of the first cars we sold was to his sister-in-law, which was a Fiat 500 Sport, I think on a 2011, and she had this Fiat 500. And when it came in, it is basically beat up on every panel. I know it's dirty at the moment, but I do clean it regularly normally, but all the panels have dents in them, like big dents as well. Every corner's been scraped, all the alloys are scraped. Inside, all the checkered interior is stained, and the steering wheel, all the paint's coming off the steering wheels and off the gear knob, and generally she's just very untidy. And she wanted to part exchange it, and the thing with it is the amount of bodywork that it needed. It has had 80,000 miles on it. The amount of bodywork it needed, it was never going to be able to retail, because we had to basically respray all the alloys, or would have had to respray all the alloys. We'd have to paint pretty much all the bodywork. We'd have to have tidied up the interior on it, and it was never going to be a highly valuable car, so it financially didn't stack up. So we didn't really want it in part exchange. But basically what happened is the deal that we did on her new car, we discounted it quite heavily and threw in some additional service work and repair work, and this car went on the books at £1 as a part exchange for £1. And Stuart, being the decent guy that he is, turned around and threw me the keys, to be honest, as a joke at the beginning, because the idea of giving me a sort of a lilac Fiat 500 called Fifi, when those of you know me, I'm like 6'2", and I used to do amateur strongman. I do like getting down the gym and stuff, so the idea of me at sort of 18-19 stone running around in this lilac Fiat 500 was amusing to him, but he also was doing it to help me out, because like I said, I wanted a run around. So he sold it to me for £1, so it's on the books as £1. And we have an agreement that if I move on to do my own thing, or if he needs the car at any point, he can buy it back for the same price. and that is getting on, well, it must be over 18 months ago now, and I've been using the car pretty much daily ever since, and I have to say it is absolutely brilliant. It started off as a joke, but now I can't get out the thing. So like I said, she's got 89,000 miles on her. I think I've put about 6,000 miles on her since I've had her. Put her through an MOT, serviced her. But the 1.3, it's only 75 brake horsepower, but it's got about 100 foot-pound of torque, I think, or maybe even a bit more. And it's surprisingly nippy. It really is quite nippy. And it returns silly MPG. I think I get about 55, 60 miles to the gallon out of it. So on these country roads in Devon, I bomb around back and forth to work on a tank of fuel. Lasts me absolutely ages. And what I do is I put the seats down on it. Again, excuse it being dirty. I thought I'd capture this video while I had a chance. I put the seats down then, and it basically turns into a mini little van for me. I just run around with the seats down, bomb around the place, and again I can get in and out of it with my oily work clothes without having to worry about wrecking it. I do normally have a seat cover on it out of respect for the fact that I've been given it, but yeah, and it's got some leftover crisps on the seat right now. Let's get rid of them. But yeah, I bomb around in it every day, and I often, you know what it's like when you've got lots of cars, I actually often just hop in this just for ease, because it's just the one that always runs and starts and drives. Obviously with these being diesel, you've got the DPF in them, so you have to make sure you get them nice and hot to stop the DPF getting blocked up. So I do drive her quite hard every now and then to do that. We did logo up with Stuart's logo, so Alfa Ragazzi. So if I haven't covered this before, Stuart's a good friend of mine. We had a unit together while I was doing my corporate thing. We had a unit together out at Umberley in Devon. That we shared because I needed storage and he wanted to stop being a mobile mechanic, and we got the first unit over there. We've got to be talking 5 years ago now, and we shared that unit, and I just had my own personal cars in there. And then about, oh god, what was it, 4 years ago, Stuart moved into Barnstable into this bigger unit, and he is an Alfa Romeo specialist. He focuses on Alfa Romeos and Fiats, he does as well. And we've always worked together on little projects, but when I said about giving up the corporate thing and trying car sales, he said, you know, come and give it a go here, which is why I have the front of the unit for my sales cars, and Stuart and I do a deal on a cut of the profits. So yeah, so I lost what I was talking about there. So yeah, so Stuart's unit here, and oh yeah, so the logo. So we logoed it up with Stuart's logos. So as I'm driving around, I do advertise his business. And, you know, obviously I do try and, like I say again, it's normally a bit cleaner than this. It's got a bit dirty, but advertise the business as I bomb around so that people see the car out and about, because he's not allowed to sign. Another thing of this landlord here that doesn't want the car sales going on, doesn't want signage out the front of the industrial estate, so you can't actually put a sign up to say who you are and what you do. So I bomb around with this on the side, and you know, every now and then someone pulls up and says they've spotted it out and about. But yeah, just other than that, just absolutely brilliant. I think there's probably not many cars that would keep up with me on these Devon back lanes in this Fiat 500 through the corners with this peppy little diesel. It really is that much fun, and for low cost fun motoring as a daily, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, that's the story of my my little 1 litre Fiat 500. That's why sorry, 1 litre, my little £1 Fiat 500, so 1.3 diesel. That's the story of the £1 500. That's why you see me in it, bombing around in it all the time, and it just means I can have as many other toys as I like, but my daily costs me absolutely next to nothing to run. You've got to think about it. A lot of my friends do take the mic out at me and say, why don't you go and buy yourself a nice car, get rid of all these older cars, get yourself one nice car. I have no interest whatsoever in having 30 grand tied up in a motor that isn't making me profit. That 30 grand in a motor, unless it's a car that I intend on selling on and having it advertised for sale while I'm doing it, there'll be absolutely no point me having a 30 grand motor or whatever. I'm not going to be paying monthly finance packages for a car again. I don't see the point in it, having the money tied up in it. All the money I've got, I want to have it in stock, in something that's making me money. If I can't have it in cars, I'll have it in something else, you know, something else to make me money, make your money work for you. And there's no point how really having it tied up in a car. I mean, no disrespect to those of you that do, you know, if that's your thing and you want to be seen in a nice car and you want to enjoy a nice new car, that's fair enough. But for me personally, having started up a new business, all my money needs to work for me, so I don't want it tied up in a personal car like that. I mean, I guess you could argue if you added up the value of all of my toys, I've probably got well over 30 grand's worth, but I won't challenge myself on that one, but I do enjoy the older stuff anyway, and I enjoy the stuff I can tinker with. And again, if you look at all the old cars I got, they're all appreciating assets, they're all going up in value. There's little point to me to be having money tied up in something that's only a depreciating asset. So you know, things like the 106 Rally, I can bomb around in that and I won't be losing money on it when I drive it. The reason I go for Dacia ones as well is because I don't want to be driving it around and worrying I'm devaluing it. So if this was an absolute minter, I wouldn't be driving it. You wouldn't see me driving it at all. It'd be up for sale, and I would leave it totally clean, and I wouldn't drive it at all for fear that anything went wrong with it, and then I had to plough more money into it. So yeah, that's enough of my ramblings on. That's the Fiat 500, £1 Fiat 500. As for the Dacia, she's over there drying off, and as I said, I'm not going to touch her now. We're going to leave her there until tomorrow morning. Did you have fun?